Yeah, so I was wrong when I said that Petrus Palmu, who is a Vancouver Canucks prospect who wasn't going to the training camp for the prospects, was going back to TPS to finish off what Capo Caco started, and I was wrong. He's not going to TPS. Let's talk a little bit about Petrus Palmu and the plan. Because for a guy who was drafted in the 6th round, in his draft plus 2 year, Petrus Palmu is a guy who has, for some reason, a whole bunch of attention amongst Vancouver Canucks fans, and overall, we're not supposed to sit here and pretend like Palmu is an NHL caliber prospect, but the fact of the matter is here, we have a player who has had some really good success in the years before. And he's a player who does look like he could become something eventually if everything goes right, because of the work ethic, the drive, the skill, etc., and all the factors working against him paint up this narrative of an underdog. Petrus Palmu was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks, 6th round draft pick in 2017, 181st overall. This was a player that a lot of people at the time of the draft thought was a pretty good pick. Sure, he was turning 20. Sure, he's only 5'6" and 172 pounds. Now, that's not small. It's small, but it's not light. It's quite heavy for a guy who's only 5'6". In fact, Palmu has a higher BMI than Brock Besser does, so that kind of paints the narrative that Palmu, although being small, is not a light guy. He's built like a fire hydrant. Those legs of his are very strong and powerful. That's the narrative that's been painted around Palmu for a while, and back when he was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks in 2017 as a 19 turning 20-year-old, he was really good. 98 points in 62 games, playing with Jonah Gadjevich on the wing and Nick Suzuki down the middle. That was a stacked line for the Owen Sound attack, and Palmu established himself as one of the stronger players that the Vancouver Canucks had in their prospect system, despite being a late guy, despite being an overager, and despite being small. Palmu had this narrative around him that made people want to cheer for him. And going over into what he did the next year with the TPS Turku in the Finnish Liiga, he was really, really good. 36 points in 59 games for a 19 turning 20-year-old player. And he was the Rookie of the Year in the Liga. Yeah, he was really good. Most points by a rookie, most goals by a rookie. He was legit. Sure, he was a bit older and he was smaller, but he was legit. Which is why coming into the Utica Comets last season, people were expecting some really good things out of Palmu. We all know that Utica hasn't been the best at allowing the prospects that we had potential with to exhibit that potential to the best of their abilities. Guys like Cole Lind and Gadjevich kind of fell off a little bit. Jonathan Dahlen got traded because of some other issues, and Petrus Palmu, he had 1 assist in 12 games and then he went back to Finland. He was sent out on a loan to the TPS once more, wrapped up that with 18 points in 29 games last season. And now, Petrus Palmu is not going to be at the Vancouver Canucks training prospects camp. In fact, he wasn't. It's already done. He wasn't there. And the plan has been revealed that Petrus Palmu is going back to Europe. It's just that there isn't any real confirmation as to where Palmu would play. Check out his agent Todd Diamond on Sportsnet 650 earlier today. Petrus Palmu's agent says that Petrus is training back home in Finland and will likely play in Europe this season and then report to Utica. So he will go the opposite way. Last season he was in Utica, he left, went to Finland, finished up a season there, and boom. Next season he's in Europe, he's coming over to Utica to end the year most likely. So what exactly is in store for Palmu now as a 22-year-old NHL prospect? Is he still a player with NHL potential? Well, I hope so. He's 5'6", so he's small, but he's got all these other factors working against him that at this point, it would be easy to say that he's not an NHLer, and I think the more likely path is that he's not an NHLer. But on the off chance that Petrus Palmu's work ethic, his skill, his drive, and his overall ability to be a pest out there on the ice while also producing somewhat a capable amount of points, on the off chance that all of that allows him to truly develop to the best of his ability, we have a solid penalty killer. We have a solid bottom 6 guy. We have a solid guy who could definitely help things out on either wing as a strong-willed force. Think kind of like Tyler Mott, but a little bit stronger. That's what I have to say about Petrus Palmu, and if you could disagree, you could comment down below what you think if you don't agree, but Petrus Palmu, he's had that reputation as a fire hydrant, and I remember Jonah Gadjevich back a year or two ago. You know Gadjevich, second-round pick, right? He was also in 2017 drafted by the Canucks. Gadjevich said that Palmu will make the league one day, and he was really certain about that. He said that Palmu's work ethic and his drive is so strong that if there's any player that's going to make the league at his height, it's going to be Palmu. And sure, that's a comment from a few years ago. It's not necessarily like the most reputable source. I mean, Gadjevich, I know and love you, but like, NHL players say some weird things all the time. In fact, Jared Stahl is supposed to be the best one, and Jordan Subban's supposed to be the best one. But if there's an NHL player that comes out of Petrus Palmu, then I'd be very welcoming to it. Obviously, we could use more wingers, but if Petrus Palmu does develop properly, he could break into the NHL by the time he's 24. And that's if everything goes right. I don't say that that's guaranteed, but I don't want to write him off just yet. Sure, he's a 6th-round pick. He's not supposed to make the NHL because 6th-round picks don't make the league. But Palmu, he's got a great engine. And I think if there's anybody that's going to overcome that, it would be him. It's actually so weird going through all of it, because I remember back when Palmu was drafted, there was a ridiculous amount of hype for a guy who was taken in the 6th round as an overager, and he was only 5'6". Like, the hype for Palmu was legit, mostly because of his chemistry with Gadjevich, and that definitely played a huge part of it. But like, I remember just going through Palmu's year with TPS, his first year, there was like a new GIF posted onto Twitter like every second day or whatever of a new thing that Palmu was doing on the ice. He's scoring a goal or making a cool assist, passing the puck like crazy, or he's on the penalty kill. Palmu had such a high prospect stock, I guess, for a guy of his status. His status is a player that's not really supposed to become anything, where he was drafted, his size, his age, but Palmu legitimately had this huge following that low-key kind of knew that he's like, hey, he's not supposed to be an amazing prospect, but everybody loved him anyway. And that's why I can sit here and be like, yeah, okay, we're talking about Palmu, we're getting really into it, I can talk about this guy, because like, there is a legit desire amongst Canucks fans that wants this guy to succeed. And the fact that he was able to do so well at TPS, then come over to Utica and not do well, really not do well at all, under a system that didn't promote any of the other guys except for Dahlin, who got traded, and Lukas Jasek, who no one knew about, to do well at. There's a problem with Utica among some people's eyes, and that definitely does play into it too. I'm certainly not going to pretend like that controversy does not exist, because I've talked about it a few times, but Utica's way of developing players has definitely not been super hot, I guess. You could say Demko and Markstrom, as I said in a previous video, or you could say Jake Virtanen, but like, are any of these guys legit NHL stars at the moment? Aside from the 2 goalies, which, I mean, they're goalies, they're not supposed to be like a traditional player in terms of development. So, for Palmu specifically, I hope, this is my hope, I hope that he totally does well in whatever European league and team he goes to. At least, like, 3 points every 4 games. Like, a 0.75 points per game, I think would set Palmu in the right direction to still be labeled as a player with NHL potential. Because I think he's got the capabilities of doing that, man. Like, his season with TPS last year was pretty solid. 36 points in 60 games is not bad. If he's able to get better, maybe in the KHL, maybe in the Czech Extraliga, maybe in Sweden, maybe in Finland again, who knows? If he's able to get better than that, then I truly hope that he is able to. I truly hope that happens, and I truly hope that once he comes back to Utica, he's played more, and he produces more than a guy who only gets 1 point in 12 gosh darn games. Because I remember when he was with Utica too, he was getting scratched and everything. It was not pretty. And we all had our own opinions about it, and we all had our own 2 cents to say about it too. So Palmu nowadays, I think there's still a chance. I don't want to be a Canucks homer and say there is a definite possibility and it is going to happen, but I would be lying if I said that I believe that possibility does not exist. Petrus freaking Palmu. I hope he makes the team with Gadjevich. I hope they're on the same bottom six line someday in the future with Adam Gaudette centering it or something. Hey, bring Nick Suzuki back with these two guys. Trade for Nick Suzuki. Have him as a third line center. That would be cool, wouldn't it? But I digress. I have such a really weird love for Petrus Palmu. I love all small guys, because I'm only 5'3" myself. It's kind of why I loved Caulfield so much, and Dominic Fensori, and like Sean Doogie in the college leagues too. Small guys are where my heart's at, because I'm a small guy myself too, so I love seeing the representation for all of us who are below the average height. But yeah, that's the video.